When you look at a PMS, the first thing which probably comes to your mind is the returns. But what if I say there's a story much beyond the returns and performance itself? That's the idea behind the PMS Chronicle. And in this series, we are going to learn the trends, the performance, the market share, the benchmarks, and about the clients in the Indian PMS industry. In this episode, we take a step back and learn what a portfolio management fund is and how is it useful to the investors and what the PMS Chronicle is about. Stay tuned. So it's great to have you with us today. Before we dive deep into the PMS Chronicle, can you give a small glimpse about what is portfolio management services for our viewers?
A portfolio management service or a PMS, right? Generally, that's what it's called in the industry. It's a SEBI-regulated structured investment product which tries to. There's a portfolio manager involved who tries to curate a portfolio according to the requirements of an investor. So all of us have different risk appetites, right? You might have let's say an aggressive one, I might have a moderate one, and my friend might have a very conservative one. There are different PMS products or portfolio management service products in the country which try to curate products according to your risk appetite. So as an investor, what you are typically looking at is you're looking at someone who knows the markets having access to your portfolio, right? In a way. See, there's something called a power of attorney that you give with a portfolio management arrangement that you have with an investor, where he executes transactions on your behalf. So we all have demat accounts, trading accounts, and let's say with the respective brokers that is there in the country, right? Most of us have Zerodha accounts, some of us have with HDFC, right? We all know what happens within the portfolio because we've learned all that from COVID, if I'm not wrong, right? So PMS essentially is something like that, right? The PMS manager typically, to make you understand it a little better, has your credentials, let's say your username and password, and executes transactions on your behalf. To put it very simply, though in principle it doesn't act like that, it is for your understanding that a PMS manager typically does this. He has your credentials and he executes transactions on your behalf. So this, in a way, is very different from a mutual fund where there's a lot of money which is pooled into a specific fund and your allocated units. In this case, a PMS manager manages your demat account separately. That is where the customization lies.
And how does the PMS actually work for an investor? Who manages it and how are the investment decisions taken?
Okay. See, as I said, portfolio management services are SEBI regulated products and they have someone called the portfolio manager managing a PMS, right? These are people or these are managers who've gotten their PMS manufacturing license or rather PMS curation license from SEBI, which they have to write an exam for and have the required experience in the financial markets, and that's how they get their PMS license, right? So let's say you are a person who wants to get a PMS or a portfolio management services as part of your overall portfolio. You go to a SEBI registered PMS manager and tell him, see, I want a portfolio curated to my requirement. So all these PMS managers have different products, right? One can have a flexi cap mandate, one can have a small cap mandate, one can have a large cap mandate. Some people even run multi-asset portfolios in PMS, right? So when your requirement is pretty much set, let's say with your advisor, with the help of your financial advisor, it's pretty much set and you have an understanding of what you require from a portfolio management service, you can approach these PMS managers and let them know this is what I want. So what they do is they act as an intermediary, right? So for you to get a PMS, right, you need to go through a process which involves opening a demat account with the respective portfolio manager. So the portfolio manager just acts as an intermediary between your demat account and you, right? So he curates a portfolio where he decides the buy and sell decisions, which is called the discretionary portfolio management services. There is another portion of portfolio management services which is non-discretionary, which is not very prominent, but the prominent one is your discretionary portfolio management services, where the portfolio manager takes the call on what he buys or sells in your portfolio, right? When you reach out to him, this is what happens, and he sets up, or rather there's an agreement in place between you and the portfolio manager where you give him a power of attorney to execute transactions on your behalf. So there's a separate demat account that is opened, there's a specific strategy that is assigned to you, and that's when the relationship starts. This is to put it in a very brief form of what goes on with the investor's portfolio with respect to a PMS.
Thank you, sir. I hope our viewers might have understood it. Now let's dive deep into the PMS Chronicle. So, a curious question which I had was there are already many PMS reports in the industry. Why did the industry need another one?
See, today PMS is a very niche space, right? Like what we initially spoke about. It has a lot of information, it has a lot of data, but all this data is not very homogeneous in nature. It's all scattered across different places. A lot of it is public data, but there is a lot of data that requires a person to take an investment decision in a PMS, which is not completely out there. Though, even if it is out there, it is not being considered for their investment decision making. What PMS Chronicle from beyondMF, which is a part of FPS Assets, tries to do is to deconstruct the entire industry and put it into simple readable form, right? So when you look at PMS Chronicle, we were very clear what we wanted to do. We wanted to get the inefficient money to go towards efficient managers, right? There's a lot of inefficient money today. To be very, very frank, there's a lot of inefficient money today going to specific sets of managers who, in our opinion, could manage the money much better, right? So PMS Chronicle, what it tries to do is it tries to deconstruct all this, and the intention is to ensure that efficient money goes towards the efficient players, right? So today, what do you possibly get in terms of PMS reports in the industry generally, right? Most of them are focused on performance. Most of them are focused on 1 year performance, 1 month performance, probably certain jargons that you don't even understand, like let's say Sharpe ratio or trainer ratio or beta, gamma, whatever it is, right? That is not something that a typical investor wants to know about. A typical investor wants to know if a PMS actually aligns with his investment philosophy or actually aligns with his requirements, right? So in terms of performance, that is not the only thing that you can take off from, right? You need to look at how, if the specific PMS manager's team is the same, right? You can have, for instance, we do a lot of work on mutual funds also, where we look at how often or how frequent the portfolio manager or the fund manager changes are in a specific mutual fund, right? So typically, when you look at all these nuances, like is the portfolio manager the same person who's managing my portfolio, if it's an institution or if it's an individual person, or is there something that is happening within the PMS firm or the PMS organization that is managing my portfolio? All these are small questions that can have a great impact in your investment experience in a PMS, right? So PMS Chronicle, in a way, as it started off and as it expands into, let's say, a PMS intelligence report, what it will try to do is not just focus on performance, it will focus on a lot more aspects which will help the investors make a better investment decision on their portfolio management services. That is to be very, again, a brief opening on, right? Let's say PMS Chronicle. It's been 2 months since now. We've got a good response from the industry. And the thing is, we've gotten responses from our peers as well, which kind of validates our thinking, right? Because you always need that. Because let's say someone who's a well-wisher, you just send it to them, they'll probably tell you it's all good. But then let's say you get that kind of appreciation from a peer, that kind of validates the entire thinking. So that way, we're really happy. We're going to do a lot more. Stay tuned, is what I would say.
Thank you, sir. So, investors usually look at returns, but instead of returns, what are the things they can start looking at, sir?
Okay. See, that's a very good question, Harshita, because that is what we typically try to do with PMS Chronicle, like I had mentioned in the previous answer. Looking at returns gives you a very one-sided view, right? You know, returns are all back-ended. It's all historical, right? This is what a PMS manager has done for you in the past. While that is a very good indicator of what he can potentially do for you in the future, what happens is most of the time the conditions that existed when the portfolio manager delivered a specific performance need not be the same when they have to deliver the same thing in the future. For instance, the team might have been different at that point of time when they delivered a performance. The market cycle would have been different. They might have come in a very low market cycle, which would have typically enabled them to buy assets at lower prices. In a way, they would have, in a way, all credit to them because they would have caught the market cycle at the right time and then made a good type of performance for their clients. But then what happens is are the conditions, or is the portfolio weathering all different market conditions and trying to still being able to sustainably deliver a performance is what you need to keep asking as an investor, right? In our opinion, there are very few PMS managers who try to be all-weather portfolios or try to create all-weather portfolios in the country. That is what we are trying to put it out there. See, our PMS Chronicle does not try to dissect the, let's say, the best between, I mean, the best and the not so great type of people, right? Our intention is to put the data out there in a readable form, in a way to not just focus on performance, focus on things like the qualitative aspects of a portfolio manager. Let's say how he thinks and how sustainable the portfolio can be across market scenarios. All these things only make your PMS Chronicle. And obviously, like I said, we are only expanding with whatever we are trying to offer with the PMS Chronicle. Today, what I would say is you're just looking at a very small glimpse of what we as a team from beyondMF will potentially offer. So again, watch out for PMS Chronicle in the future, where it is your decision making is going to become more qualitative than quantitative, because quantitative is always historical. When you make a qualitative decision, you're always looking out for your future.
So, do you think PMS is becoming more mainstream, or it is just focused as a high-end network-based product?
So PMS, while it has a minimum requirement of 50 lakhs today, right, which in our opinion definitely is not a small number to have today. So definitely it is for a very, very niche set of people. But again, when it's becoming mainstream, right, you can see a lot of platforms talk about a lot of portfolio management services. How, because today what is happening is you don't seem to understand if you actually require a PMS or not. That is actually there, right? Because from a wealth perspective, or rather from an overall wealth management or a portfolio perspective, PMS again is a very structured product, right? It needs to, or rather a person who invests in a PMS needs to understand what he or she is getting into before he invests into that product. Some people don't seem to realize that and they get into a PMS, and when they don't give the time that is required for a PMS to perform, right, that's when they get a little impatient and try to get out before the PMS actually performs to their requirement. Obviously the PMS also, or the PMS manager also, needs to keep communicating this, that they need to be in there for the long term. And whatever things that you hear, right, generally it's not very easy for you to implement, but you see and hear all these things, right? You stay for the long term, stay invested through bear markets, and ensure that you shelf off your, let's say, your high value bets during high raging bull markets. All these are very, very easy for you to listen to, but then it's very, very hard for you to implement when your portfolio, let's say, it's bleeding through a bear market or just raging through a bull market, right? So in a way, in our opinion, a PMS manager should do exactly that. While taking care of a portfolio from a fundamental or whatever the investment philosophy's perspective is one part, the PMS manager also needs to keep the investors' nerves in check, right? To make sure that the investors understand what they're getting into. So, in a way, today, if you ask me if it is for a niche audience, I would definitely say yes, because over a period of time, they also need to understand only a portion of the overall portfolio needs to go into a, let's say, an alternative product like a PMS or an AIF, and not the entire portfolio. I would have heard a lot of people when they, let's say, hit the minimum requirement, right? They immediately want to jump into a PMS without understanding what could potentially be their liquidity window, what could potentially be their risk appetite, and all that. So, just to put all that in context, yes, it is for a very niche audience, but then now India as an economy also expanding, right? You have a lot of people going up on the ladder in terms of disposable income and what they've saved up, and in terms of whatever they want to get out of it, what kind of productivity they want to get out of their overall portfolio. All that is changing. So with that in context, definitely PMS will be a force to reckon, and it will definitely serve a lot of people's needs. So my understanding on that is it is becoming from niche to not so niche over a period of time, but then you will need to have niche products to cater to that market. You can't keep doing the same thing as you did, let's say, 5 years back and still cater to today's market, because the requirements have become very specific and sophisticated in nature. So you have to cater to that today. I think SEBI is also coming up with a lot of consultation papers to make this industry a little bit more structured. We've heard of this MFPMS, which comes with a lower ticket size of 25 lakhs. We've seen this a point which says the individual PMS manager can practice without actually getting a license, which is more like an asset light model of a PMS. So a lot of things even the regulator is trying to do to become to make these financial products more structured in nature, just to ensure the overall financial inclusion theme is being met.
So, before we end today's video, can we have a quick rapid fire round?
Rapid fire, okay, sure.
Can a PMS be started with less than 50 lakhs, sir?
As of now, as per SEBI regulations, the minimum requirement is 50 lakhs.
So is a bigger PMS necessarily a better PMS?
Not necessarily. Being bigger also comes with its own challenges.
So does a PMS ultimately give you better returns than a mutual fund?
Again, not necessarily, because PMS and mutual fund are different animals altogether.
Can you lose money in a PMS even if the market is doing well?
Absolutely. People have done that in the past. It can happen in the future as well.
So is a PMS only for investors who afford to take higher risk?
I would say a PMS is only for someone who can understand what risk is.
Can a small PMS outperform a larger PMS?
Absolutely, it is happening. It happened, and I'm sure it will happen in the future as well.
Does a PMS need a long history track record to be taken seriously?
Longer track records do help, but then what the PMS is going to do in the future only matters more.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Thanks a lot, Harshita.
We come to the end of our very first episode, the PMS Chronicle. This is a monthly series where you have data, trends, and changing behaviors of the Indian PMS industry. Stay tuned until next month for the new edition of the PMS Chronicle.